Hi everybody, it's Jenny from the Missouri Star Quilt Company, and I've got a great project for you today. Let's take a look at this quilt behind me. Isn't this fun? Now this is one of those fun blocks where you think you see what you're seeing, but you don't see what you're seeing. So here is the block right here, and it comes right down the center of these blocks. This is the block you're looking at that you think it is, but it's not. It's this block here. So I want to show you how to make this. This is so much fun. So to make this quilt, what you're going to need is 3 packs of 5-inch squares, and that's 42 squares per pack. And we are using today Simply Chic by Anna Stewart for Benartex. And it just makes a beautiful quilt. You're going to need about 2 yards of background fabric. Some of those are going to be the same 5-inch squares, so you could use a pack. I think you're going to need about 80 of those. Don't hold me to that number, but I think it's about 80. And so you would need 2 packs of that, but we've put it all as yardage, so to include our first border out here. So 2 yards of background fabric. For your outer border, you're going to need 1.25 yards. That's a 5.5-inch border, and so it just makes a really cute border. So let me show you how to do this, because this is really a fun quilt, and it's just a fun take on an old block. We are making a 9-patch block. We're making it out of 5-inch squares, and we're going to take 5 of our colored squares, and I have some I've pulled out of the pack right here, and I'm just going to lay them out like this. And then our middle square. All right, then we're going to add our white squares in, just like this, and you'll see that it becomes a 9-patch. Just like that. Now when you make a 9-patch block, what you're going to do is sew 3 rows, every row together. So 3 rows of 3. You're going to sew this row together, and this row together. And to do that, we're just going to go over to the sewing machine. We're going to lay our squares right sides together and sew 1/4 inch right down the side. And I'm just lining mine up on my 1/4 inch line. And I'm remembering that I have a color white color on this row, and so we're going to put our other row over here and just sew 1/4 inch right down that. All right, now we need to press this, and we're going to press so that our seams here go out like this. All right, so we want to make sure that you see that. So what I'm going to do basically is I'm just going to roll these out, because that will keep my seam on the right side. I like to press from the top, make sure there's no folds, and then I flip it over to make sure my seams are going the right direction. All right, now I'm going to go over the sewing machine and sew these other 2 rows together, and I'll meet you right back here. So now with our center block, we're going to make sure the rows go to the middle. So we're going to bring this over, and we're going to go ahead and just iron them so they come over to the middle like this. And we want to make sure they're nice and flat. Going to iron it from the top as well. Make sure those seams are laying down. This guy wants to kind of go the other way. There we go. All right. So when we do that, when these seams are in and these seams are out, when we go to put our block together, they're going to lay very nicely, just like that. So now I'm just going to go ahead and go to the sewing machine, and I'm going to sew this row on the top and this row on the bottom, and I will meet you back here with a finished block. So now we've got our block all sewn together. It's pressed very nicely. What I was looking for was for these corners to match up, and like this one is like a tiny bit off, but it's good enough for me. It's good enough for me. So that's what we're looking for. We're looking for this to have, you know, fairly good sharp corners, because that's going to matter with what we do next. So now we're going to take our block, and we're going to take our ruler, and we're going to come in 2.5 inches on the 2 long sides, okay? So we've got our ruler on there, and we're going to come in 2.5, just like this, and then we're going to flip our block around and come in 2.5 on this side as well. All right, now I'm going to set these up here, and then I'm going to do it to these sides as well. So 2.5. If you have a ruler that has a 1/2 inch mark, watch that, because that can throw you off. It can, you know, give you, I mean, just watch it. it has to be important that your ruler makes sense to your brain. Alrighty, here we go. 2.5 from the edge on all 4 sides. We're cutting the sides first and then the top and bottom. Then we have this middle block. We're going to set this over here. We're going to take another 4 patch and we're going to do the same thing to it. So once you get your blocks all cut like this and the parts are all separated, now is where you want to lay them out. And this is where the swap comes in, because we've got the middle from these legs going in this block, you know, and vice versa. I don't know if I said that right, but it was pretty close. Hopefully you'll get the gist. So what we're going to do is we're going to lay this out, and I want to make sure that I have, you know, opposite colors. And then we're going to put our long strips on, and you'll get to see how this is going to work. So here's this right here, and this one right here. So that worked perfect. So see how this is going to go? These corners are going to frame up these little stones, and it just makes it really cute. So let's go ahead and sew on our short ends like this. We'll come over here. Now if you have your seams will probably be going the same direction. So what you want to do is you just want to fold one so that it runs the opposite direction. Usually what happens is, as my sewing machine comes through, one lays down. If you happen to get a twist, it is so not the end of the world. I just clip it and let it go. All right, there's that side. And I'm going to flip this around and sew this side on. All right. You want to keep your little corners lined up, your seams matched up so that you get nice sharp corners. All right, now we're going to press these out and just lay them down. Now because we've taken 1/4 inch on this seam, our long ones, the long side ones, are now going to be too long. So what we're going to do is we are going to match up these seams right here, and we're going to put a little pin in there. Let me grab a couple of pins here. They don't want to give up their pin cushion. Oh, I probably shouldn't put those in my mouth. All right, so what we're going to do here is we're going to line up this seam right here. So this is our seam that we're lining up, and we're just going to go ahead and put a pin in there so that stays nice and snug together. Oh golly, I hate when you get a bad pin. You just want to, I just toss them. It's so much work. All right, then this one over here, again, we are also going to lay that so that it lays really nice. Put a pin in there, and we're going to do the same thing to this side. And I'm going to pin this whole thing before I even head over to the sewing machine, so then I can just sit down and sew my sides on. And then once we get them all sewn, that's when our trimming will come in. Then we'll trim our little block up so that it's nice and square. Alrighty, I'll put a pin in this last one. I'm working my way over to the sewing machine, and we're going to sew these sides on. So again, see how these stick out a little bit right here? That's okay. We're pinning from the seam. This is the seam we want to match right here, this little seam. So we're just going to go ahead and sew along this on the sides. I hope that makes sense to you. It's super easy. Once you do it, you'll be like, oh, I know what she was doing. Alrighty. Let me lift my presser foot up there. I'm going to take that pin out. There we go. And I'm coming to this pin. I'm just going to pull it out as I'm going. All right, then we're going to flip this around and sew down the other side. There we go. Make sure I'm feeling on my seams to make sure they're nice and lined up. Pull that pin out. Get rid of those pins before we sew over them. All right. Oh, I'm hung up on the foot here. Let me get that out of there. There we go. It's still sewed fine. So let's go press this back now. I'm going to go ahead and lay this down and make sure this lays really nice and roll it back. Like that. And roll it back. Alrighty. So now what we're going to do is we're just going to trim our sides off. And I'm just going to do that right here, right now. There we go. There's that side. And I'm just laying my ruler along the edge, using the block as my straight edge and going along there. All right. So this is your block right here. This is how it fits into the quilt right here. See how that goes? And so I want to show you how we lined these out because this is really fun. And here's your other parts. This is your other parts for your next block. And you can swap them 2 by 2 or you can really mix them up, whatever you want to do. All right, so here we go. I'm gonna set this one right here and we are going to show you how these go together. So you're going to put them together, sew them in rows. There's 4 in a row. I'm going to show you 2 so you can see how this center block right here, see how this comes together? And really this looks like this is the block, but we know this is the block. So if you sash this, you're going to have a completely different quilt. I mean, it's just fun to think about the possibilities. So let's look at our quilt behind us. We have 4 big blocks across in every row, and then we have 5 rows down. So it makes a nice, good size quilt. As a matter of fact, it makes a quilt that's 64 by 76, so that's a pretty good size quilt. All right, so let me show you something else here. Sometimes you want to see what's going to happen when you use a different fabric. So I took some solids, these are grunge solids, and here I want to move these so you can see how these look. This is the outside of this inner block, and this is the inside of this outer block. So we just swapped them, and look what a difference it makes. Look at that color. Isn't that fun? I mean, it's just fun to see things in different color. So I hope you'll give this block a try. I mean, this is a great little quilt. Let's see what we used on the back here. Oh, isn't that gorgeous? I mean, to me, this is like a, reminds me of a picnic blanket. So let's see how much we needed for the back. You're going to need 4 3/4 yard for the backing, and it just makes a nice, great finished quilt. So we hope you enjoyed this tutorial on the 9-patch swap from the Missouri Star Quilt Company.